So explain to me in simple terms and then expand on it. What is Hadou?
Okay, so in the ancient Chinese theory of what is called internal power, Qi is what every being in existence possesses to some measure, whether that's active or inert. Now, Hadou is the actualization of Qi. It's like the extension. It's like if you had a gasoline motor, it would be the gasoline, and the horsepower would be the Qi.
Okay. So define uh, what she is in sort of like a physical sense or a martial arts sense or uh,
Or like in general.
in general, yeah.
So Qi is basically like that which is life force. The Hindus or the Indians, they call it prana,
Okay.
right? My ancestors, the ancient Nubians and Kemetans, also known as the Egyptians and the Sudanese, called it Sechem. And Sechem was a goddess who descended from another goddess named Tefnut, who was basically, her name literally means life force. So life force is half of existence. The other half of existence is ether, which is the male or masculine aspect of that same power called Sa. The god's name is Shu, also known as the wind. Where I'm going with this is the fact that Qi, in its essential nature, is actually completely feminine.
Okay.
It is a feminine force. It is a feminine power, right? That's why women can give birth. Men can manifest chi most to the extreme when it comes to like destruction. So that's like war and fighting and battle and killing. You know, it becomes negative in men and positive in females, which it can go either way. But when it comes to like the absolute extremes of what it is, that's how it's manifested within the realm of gender when it comes to the male and female principle.
Okay, so going back to Hadou, you have defined different types of Hadou, and one of them being extremely powerful Hadou.
Oh, so there's three types and four forms that I've coined, right? The three types everybody knows off the hop when I say them: the spiritual, the mental, and the physical. Right? Those are the types. Those are what somebody may be adept in. For instance, when I see you, I think mental huddle. You know, that intellectual capability, highly advanced, you know, genius, near genius, adept, etc. Um, the four forms of Hadou are positive Hadou, chaotic Hadou, negative Hadou, and dark Hadou.
Okay. Uh, Tell me more about Dark Hadou.
So dark Hadou is like your wretchedly evil motherfuckers.
Okay.
These are your murderers, you know, your serial killers, your rapists, your psychopaths, your pedophiles.
Okay.
These are the niggas that willfully know that they're evil, and they're basically what the Quran would call kafirun, which is loosely translated as disbelievers, but in fact is literally in the literal meaning of it is denier of the facts. These are the people who know they're doing evil, keep doing evil, and basically don't care that they are perpetrating evil, and they enjoy it. That the dark Hadou extends to the people who, you know, control governments and run society.
Okay. Yeah, that's a whole other area of discussion that we can delve into. Um, let's talk about the other three types of Hadou. And so there's positive, negative,
And chaotic.
and chaotic. Um, talk about positive and negative very quickly, and then talk about the chaotic.
So okay, so let's get into the positive. So the positive Hadou, that's your Olympic gymnast,
Okay.
or your power lifter, or your bodybuilder, or your high-ranking martial artist. You know, somebody that's like above like the third or fourth degree in their black belt training. You know, positive Hadou is also those who are, you know, who are adept intellectually, like your scientists, your quantum physicists, your astrophysicists, your biologists. You know, anybody in any scientific field who is exceptional. You know, people who are above the norm in some sort of way and possess phenomenal ability in their respective field, or what it is they delve into.
Okay.
And then negative Hadou is your basic ignorant criminal, right? To put it simple and plain, somebody who's just, you know, who goes with the flow, somebody who's dull in the mind, somebody who has potential to, you know, be something, but chooses to live a criminal lifestyle, and because of that criminal lifestyle that they choose, they become very adept in that way of life, although it's, you know, immoral or incorrect in principle and in virtue. But, you know, they become great con artists. You know, they become, you know, they can become master thieves. You know, there's been criminals that got away with, like, you know, somebody, and a perfect example is the people who knocked over Fort Knox. You know, those guys are people who possess negative Hadou. You know, that's a prime example. Or the Watergate scandal. You know, things of this nature, like these high crimes that are pulled off by these cunning figures.
Or the people that perpetrated 9/11.
That as well, but those guys would be more dark,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because they were sinister. You know, criminals usually do things for monetary gain.
Right.
That's what makes them ignorant, because they don't see that, you know, there's shit beyond money.
Okay.
You know,
And that leads us to chaotic Hadou,
which is like the very crucible of my belief system that I have in place for myself. Chaotic Hadou is the person who is suffering from what they call mental illness. Somebody who has the potential to, you know, actualize their Hadou, but they don't know how to go about it. They don't know how to control it, as per se the bodybuilders and the Olympic gymnasts and the martial artists and the geniuses in the different various scientific fields. This is somebody who is caught in a society that can't help them because they're surrounded by people who are average or below average and don't understand this level of potential or this level of energy. So they run into problems with society and then they commit crimes or they get admitted into mental institutions, and the whole run of the mill of the system, and they're drugged up, and they're put under therapy, and they're given a clinical team, and they're observed, and they're basically imprisoned because of what it is they possess. And what it is they possess is what that system wants, which is another topic, but maybe we could get into that, and this will explain where I'm going with the whole chaotic Hadou thing.
Well, before we do that, there are three things that I wanted to talk about. You're talking about people, so let's classify it as bipolar mania. When someone experiences bipolar mania, their mood becomes elevated, and their thoughts start to become elevated or racing or whatever. But they can think faster. They can think through things more quickly than the people that surround them. So this is a prime example of someone with chaotic Hadou. Is a person
who is in that state,
is bipolar manic. Now, the problem here is that we're not shown how to deal with these situations, and we aren't given any means to quell the mania. I personally have found that if you eat a lot of food, it will induce sleep, and then you can get out of the mania. There's an issue with mania, and that's there's delusion. There's a delusion component. You can be deluded into thinking that what you see or hear or think is real when it's actually wrong. But there's so many other instances in mania that can be tied to a higher level of thinking and
functioning in general.
Yeah, it's almost magical, I would say.
It can be, but it has to be channeled, right? Like for instance, the Olympic gymnasts. Like their type of Hadou is the physical. Now, look what they do on the mats. Mm-hmm. They run, they do a series of backflips, and then from their hands they spring into the air and do 3 or 4 backflips while spinning in rotation, and then land in perfect form. You can't tell me that that's functioning on an average level.
No, it's
it's elevated.
It's highly. They're highly trained to do that.
To do that, but you need to have some measure of phenomenality within you.
That's the word.
To even get to that point where you can say, you know what, I'm gonna do 20 back handsprings, and then jump into a double backflip and do a 720 rotation, right? And then win a gold medal. Like who wakes up and thinks about that? Who I met a high-ranking Aikido Shihan. Shihan is another word for teacher. It actually means teacher of teachers. So he's the one teaching my sensei how to teach me. Okay, basically. And when I looked into his eye, and he was an amicable character. His name was Robert Mustard, actually, Shihan Robert Mustard. And when I looked into his eye, I was like, this guy has the same glossy, airy look of somebody who's like spaced out.
Okay.
Like somebody who is like, who looks like they're completely out of it. He had his wits about him. I'm not saying that he was deranged or anything, but in his eye itself, in his eyes themselves, there was that airy, eerie, otherworldly feeling, like he was in tune with something that other people didn't perceive. And now when I look at Gozo Shiota, Kansho Sensei, the founder of my technique of Yoshinkan Aikido, he has that same look. And then when I look at O Sensei, Mohorihe Ueshiba, he has that look even more than those two do. And I say to myself, they're functioning on a level that a lot of people don't even perceive. Like, I watch the cars drive by on the highway here, and I'm like, there's no way half of these people can comprehend what it is to even begin to, conceptualize and dwell on that plane of ability. You know what I mean? Whether it's mental, spiritual, or physical, right? They don't have it because they don't exercise their potential. They don't train, they don't study, they don't do anything to actualize that potential. Everybody has the potential for Hadou.
Oh, this is what I wanted to say. So there's two instances. The first is
With mental illness, and the other with people who possess Hadou, which was 1 in 5.
1 in 5.
Right? Now, the person who said that true chi manifests in 1 out of 5 men. His name is Ashita Kim. Now, some people consider him to be a flaky, fake kind of guy, but there's some things in his literature that stood out to me that to this day I still practice in the arts of like ninpo and ninjutsu. But that's what he said. And then when I think about what they talk about, like, in the statistics of mental illness in Canada particularly, that 1 in 5 people have mental illness. It makes me think, true mental illness, because you have to remember that nowadays drug addiction is seen as mental illness.
Right.
Changing the whole fucking record.
There's something called the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. I think that's what it's called. It's the manual where they list all the medications and assign how they're to be prescribed to whichever disorder. So they list all the disorders, and every new volume of the DSM has hundreds more disorders. They just invent these fucking things. And one perfect example is seasonal affective disorder, which is the acronym is SAD, and that's the February blahs. People get bored in the middle of winter because it's snowing out and it's icy cold, and they don't want to go outside, so they have cabin fever. Well, they consider that a mental illness. So they just want to sell drugs. That's all they want to do. And we can get into that.
We can get right into that. I love getting into that, because that's another crucible and what I'm trying to bring to the people.
Okay.
To make them realize that, everything in society, in this society, like, people don't understand the nature of capitalism. Like, they think capitalism is separate from the government administration that we basically live under. They think it's, that's me. They think it's they think capitalism is wholly economic and financial and has nothing to do with what the government is doing and the government's ploys and schemes and motivations and how they get along. You know, because first and foremost, what you have to understand about capitalism is that in a capitalistic system, everything is in industry. Whether that's education, whether that's healthcare, whether that's criminal justice, whatever wing of the system you are dealing with, it is an industry, right? The industrial prison complex, the military, everything that you are dealing with in a capitalistic society is an industry.
Okay.
Somebody at the top of the food chain of any organization or institution is making at least $250,000.
Well,
That's a given. That's just a given. But I mean, and that's just the minimum. You know?
That's arbitrary. Who cares how much they make? They make a fuckload more than everybody else. But the point is that it's a capitalistic system is corrupt to the core, and so when we get into the mental health industry,
Particularly,
we see
a lot of vampirism.
there we go.
Vampirism, right? Because people who possess chaotic Hadou and are not people who are deemed mentally ill because of shit like SAD or drug addiction, these pills are an exchange for energy.
Right.
So the pharmaceutical companies sell the pills to the hospital. Right? So this is like reverse farming, because instead of the product or the beast of burden being at the beginning of the chain, it is now at the end. So it goes pharmaceutical company, hospital, doctor, patient.
Okay.
The patient is feeding all three of those. The patient is feeding the doctor, the hospital, and the pharmaceutical company.
Right. So it's a vampiricism, but nonetheless, the way it works is that the end user, being the patient, gets their lifeblood sucked out of them. It's not it's their energy. It's their
Hadou.
chaotic Hadou energy is sucked out of them.
Because they don't know how to channel it, so they take it from you.
Well, if you knew how to channel it, then you wouldn't be in the system to
begin with. Exactly. You would be a martial artist, an Olympian, a genius, a spiritualist, or something. But you would have made it because you would have had guidance. Somebody would have guided you, but they catch the ones that don't have guidance. Because think about the mentally ill in general. How many people do we know in the system that have nobody to call, no visitors, no friends on the outside, and no family to speak of?
There's a lot of people like that have one or all of those symptoms or whatever.
Attributes attached to them when it comes to, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know people have been that have been in the system for like 12 years and never had one visit.
That's horrible.
The only phone call they get is from their lawyer a couple times a year just before they're bored.
So it's truly horrific what's going on in this place.
And it's not just this hospital, it's all hospitals that are supposedly helping the mentally ill. Well, right? They're farming this energy. And since they're farming this energy, they're making a load of money because if you're gonna fucking tell me that I'm disordered, right? That I am fucking inferior and that I can't operate in society. And what I have, when it comes to what you do towards me, and you end up with a Benz or a BMW, or your home is, over $250,000 or maybe even $1 million.
I don't see things in terms of money. I don't really
But
give a shit about that.
but this is what I'm saying. Just hear me though, Steve. Hear me though. These guys are profiting off of your disorders. That's how it works. They're profiteering off your disorder, and they're telling you that you're inept and don't have the ability to live in society without their guidance and direction because of what you possess. But it's feeding their family and the whole network that subsists on that energy that you possess. But you're told that you're inferior and that you're incorrect and that you're wrong and that you're this and that you're that and a whole bunch of other shit to mentally fuck you and hold you down. Meanwhile, these niggas is eating like kings off your shit.
Alright, so looking at the entire hospital system, it's it actually, if you look in the parking lot, there's like more than 81 cars. That means that the number of people that work here outnumber the number of people that live here as patients.
That's another thing.
And what I'm saying is that without the patients, this place wouldn't exist. So they have created an industry out of people being mentally ill, and they make people mentally ill. They classify people as mentally ill who aren't mentally ill.
But possess chaotic Hadou.
Well, you see, the people that possess chaotic Hadou are the special ones that they suck the life out of, because you can't have those kinds of intelligent people with chaotic Hadou in society stirring up shit or causing shit. They're the types of people who become leaders. They're the types of people who step to the forefront of things and
Make change.
and make rally cries and talk about revolution and talk about evolution and talk about love. These people are shunned because that's not what is on TV. That's not the same program that they're trying to shove down our throats. We're supposed to be consumerists, consumers. That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to go to high school, then university or college, and get a degree or a diploma, and then go to
Get an occupation
get a job,
or a career or a job.
vocation.
But Steve, let me tell you this about that. It's the same thing. They're farming those regular people's energy in the same exact fashion as they're farming the energy of the so-called mentally ill. Right? You get paid for the exchange of your energy.
Right.
Right? And the thing is, if you look at it, those who expend the least amount of energy, who are higher up on the echelon of things,
Okay.
get remuneration, right? Thank you. In copious amounts for little effort. And I mean people like musicians and actors and athletes, right? Who gives a fuck about those niggas? I don't care that you went on screen and won 10 Academy Awards. I thank the farmer who grinded the whole year to put food on my table. He should be in the position of Denzel Washington.
Okay.
And Denzel Washington should be in his position.
Well,
And the custodians, and the sanitation workers, and the plumbers, and the electricians, and the construction workers. And we could go on and on and on and on. But at the end of the day...
Wouldn't you say it'd just be better if it was evened out? You know, like...
That's communism, though.
No, not necessarily. It's... Well, capitalism isn't the answer either.
No, it's not. It's not. It goes back to getting rid of the financial system.
Yeah, getting rid of money. That's a huge topic in and of itself. How do you live without money?
You have to get rid of the governments that control natural resources. Okay. Once you get rid of them, everybody can live for free, because now there's no need for monetization on anything, because their natural resources aren't being monetized. You see what I'm saying? Once you let go of the monetization of natural resources, nothing needs to be paid for.
Okay.
But since these niggas, the government, step in between man and the natural resources and say, you have to pay for the water, you have to pay for the heat, you gotta pay for the land, you gotta pay for the shelter, you gotta pay for the food. Mm-hmm. That's where the problem begins. That's the origin. That's the crux of the whole situation, is the fact that they're playing intermediary with the God-given abundance that is everyone's equally.
Right. Yeah, I can take that on. You know, any kind of revolution, no matter what kind it is, that is universal, where it sweeps across the world, will be tumultuous, and it won't be easy. It'll be rocky. Unsteady times are ahead, because the world is in the crosshairs of the evil that run the world and run these governments, and you know, it's scary times.
I think we did it.
That's a wrap.
I think we did. I think we touched on what needs to be touched on.
We can do some more later, some other time. We can write down what we missed.
All right.